Hi, everybody, and welcome to the FNS Wrestling Podcast bonus episode.
Yes, Merry Christmas, everyone.
I am your host, and with me, as always, is my teenage son, Jackson. Say hello,
Jackson. This bonus episode because I had a greatly terrible idea.
Yeah, tell them what we are reviewing here.
We are reviewing ECW December to Dismember from 2006. I just thought because it's a Christmassy pay-per-view, because it's like December.
It's December pay-per-view.
Well, yeah, whatever.
I wouldn't call it Christmassy necessarily.
Well, just the logo, I guess.
Yes.
And I thought, hey, why don't we review some crappy wrestling?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you made your choice because you hate me or something, or you're looking for me to remove...
Hey, maybe it's a payback for you making me watch Wrestling Society X.
That was kind of fun, I mean... No?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yes, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, so we are going to do this on Christmas Day
Yes.
is the plan, so we just finished watching this fabulous gem of a pay-per-view from 2006, this December to Dismember.
We use the term gem very loosely.
Yeah, so I don't know, anything to talk about in the preamble, or do you want to save that for our main
I have
show?
heard so much about this show throughout my endeavors in the pro wrestling world, I guess. And I just finally had to check it out for myself.
I think I blocked it out because I really didn't remember much of this when I was...
How nice for you.
I think I was happier that way, yeah. I was happier not remembering it.
But I've never actually seen it before, so...
I did learn a lot doing just a little bit of research, so I do have some background and context taken from some Wikipedia, some Bleacher Report, some... What was this other site I used? The Sportster. So I've got a variety of information here to sort of add. It did make sense once, because I sort of watched the pay-per-view first and then started researching some things about it, and it sort of explained some stuff to me, as especially the middle of this lovely little pay-per-view. So basically, here's a bit of some background from Bleacher Report, sort of taking some notes from something they published. So despite the letters printed on the ring apron, this wasn't ECW. I think we can agree, as I was somebody who watched ECW. It just happened.
Boy, was this ever not ECW.
Yeah, so I watched it on television back in the day, so this was not the same thing. So Extreme Championship Wrestling died in 2003.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon
I thought it was 2001. Because that's when he bought both companies.
He bought out the rival company that year. This is what my research says, but you could be right.
That's weird.
In 2006, he relaunched it as a brand under the WWE umbrella.
And we got the second One Night Stand event, and then we were watching. We watched like the first few episodes.
We did.
And one of the funny parts was Sandman caning the crap out of Big Dick Johnson.
Yeah, they were not good.
That was pretty funny.
We stopped watching that. We've got 3 or 4 episodes in.
We just watch it. Like I feel like we could just watch it the odd time if we want to watch something bad.
It's pretty bad.
It is.
So what aired on Sci-Fi was essentially a counterfeit version of this sort of pedal to the metal, envelope pushing cult hit that was ECW.
And as like it started out, like they had like the old entrance stage, right, and like just kind of like that look to it, right? Then it did kind of look like they tried. The first episode was a lot of them versus WWE, so it was hard to tell. But then they started trying, and then they started introducing like Kelly and Kevin Thorne, and then they just like changed the logo to like something very WWE, and it basically became pre-NXT, NXT.
So it's a less violent, not nearly as edgy as the original ECW. As an example, because it was on the Sci-Fi Network, which was obviously
there's the one episode with Zombie, right?
The Science Fiction Network. Yes, ECW did bring out a zombie character.
And Kevin Thorne was a vampire.
Right. So it infused a number of WWE-made stars into a world that had already existed, right? So we had ECW, we had ECW wrestlers, but now we're getting some WWE-made stars added to this brand.
Right, like going into this show, Big Show is ECW champion.
Right, which is clearly not an ECW
And Kurt Angle
figure.
was in the brand earlier.
Right.
Before he departed from WWE.
So as Vaughn Johnson of Philly.com wrote, sorry, that's right, I have some quotes. It was a watered-down, overproduced version that fit well within WWE standards, but not of those that followed the underdog promotion during its heyday.
Right. It's a very lazy attempt to cash in on something that was very popular.
Right, and WWE twisted and modified it to fit what they wanted, but that wasn't what the original fans wanted, right? So it sort of did not work out well for them. So this pay-per-view in particular was not well promoted at all leading up to this on either SmackDown or Raw, mostly because WWE was focused on advertising the Survivor Series pay-per-view that aired, I think, a week before this did.
And then you had Armageddon later in the month.
So, yeah, this helped to explain, because this show was literally an afterthought, right? And it really, really felt like it. This was not the focus. The focus was Survivor Series, and this was sort of
And some of the
way in
matches
the
will
background.
reflect this,
100%.
as we will get into.
So at this time, the time of this pay-per-view, the main storyline on the Raw brand, just to give us some context, right? It helped me to understand sort of the time period we're in right here.
Okay.
So the main storyline on Raw featured tag teams DX and Rated RKO, and the SmackDown brand main storyline featured Batista and World Heavyweight Champion King Booker, right? So this is the time period we're looking at. The build-up for December to Dismember began in the middle of October, about 6 weeks before the event happened. This was the only ECW brand exclusive pay-per-view WWE ever produced, because the decision was made to have all three brands featured on pay-per-views. And
I think that's a probably wise decision.
You can easily see why. There's nowhere near enough talent, at least on ECW, for them to host their own pay-per-view. I can't say anything about. I'm sure SmackDown and Raw could probably handle it, but ECW clearly cannot. On the Stone Cold podcast with Steve Austin, Heyman said about ECW at this time in 2006, "I didn't like the way it was going. It was a very personal fight between me and Vince."
And this led to his departure, and then he didn't return until Brock Lesnar came back.
It did, and I'll talk about that sort of at the end. I've got a note about that as well. You're right. So none of the matches, and this is what answered a lot of questions for me, none of the matches other than the opener and the main event had been announced before this show, and you could tell.
Wow,
right?
That is...
Because all of these matches, you'll see my notes, are basically all begin with, how is this a pay-per-view match, right?
Right, and to me it felt like an AEW dark match, and even then I think they would offer something better.
There's no backstory to any of this. It was clearly, and so that's what it felt like. That's what my instincts were. So then after reading some of this, I'm like, oh, okay, they really didn't even think about any of this except for the opener and the main event. And that 100% shows from watching the show.
Right.
So before the main event, basically just discussing it as they were trying to book it, I guess, a power struggle broke out over who would emerge as the ECW World Champion.
Yeah, I've heard much about this.
You had two camps, right? Heyman preferred to make a start out of CM Punk, and McMahon wanted to elevate Lashley.
Yeah, and I believe Heyman was also suggesting to RVD as well.
Yeah.
But after, like, he and Sabu were caught with the drugs or whatever.
Yes.
And he had to drop both titles, I don't think that would have gone over well. So I think I would have liked the Punk thing. I think it would have been cool. But...
So Heyman was adamant that Punk go over Big Show, and that the WWE put this ECW title on Punk and ride him, right? Like, we've got this new brand, we can have this, just give him the title and let him run with it. Vince disagreed and wanted Big Show and Lashley to be the final two in the match, with Big Show obviously winning. Big Show, surprisingly to me, was actually on the side of Heyman, because he was soon to retire at this point, and
really?
he saw it as an opportunity to cash in on Punk's momentum. He was part of the, we should put Punk over here.
It's funny because Big Show went on for like at least another decade, right?
Yeah, well, he did leave for a little bit. I think I cover that a bit too.
No, yeah, I think he did.
So he was leaving soon, and he wanted to put Punk over on the way out, and he thought this would be his only chance to do it. So he was actually on board to put Punk over, but they made the decision not to do that.
Nice, Vince. Nice.
So then I thought we would lead right into the show. I do have some notes on the main event and the opener as we get to them, but I thought we could just start talking about the show at this point, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so the show opens, and I don't know if you caught this or not. I noticed he said it, but I didn't really think about it until I saw it in something I was reading, that Joey Styles basically partially spoils the main event right out of the gate, because as the show opens, he tells us that the new champion will be crowned tonight, right? Huh. Even though the defending champion...
I thought he said a new champion, and I didn't really notice, but...
Well, yeah, a new champion, right? When Big Show is in there.
Right.
So he's obviously read the script or knows what's going to happen, and it was just sort of a slip you don't think about.
Or maybe
right?
he meant to go, like, a new champion could be crowned.
Could be. But he said will be.
He definitely did not say that.
No, he said will be. So that was a bit of a mistake. Let us know that there's probably a new champion coming tonight. And then,
who it is.
Is that when we get Sabu? I forget at what point he gets attacked backstage.
Not yet, but we can just mention it.
Yes.
I feel like this is an excuse to give us a lamer opponent.
Well, I have a note on this. So Sabu does get attacked backstage and is out of the chamber match. He gets the neck collar and the ambulance and the whole deal, right? So it was rumored that Sabu had animosity surrounding him backstage and was said to be uninterested at television tapings. Basically, so like if it wasn't a major event or it wasn't a major match, he really wasn't interested in doing it and was just sort of phoning it in. Rumors evolved stating that WWE viewed Sabu as being useless in normal matches and that he could only perform in matches that included stunts and tables, and they don't respect him because of that, right? He's not a wrestler to them. He's more like a stunt man.
That kind of makes sense then if they're taking him out. But
right.
His replacement
is about as WWE guy as it gets,
yeah,
right?
we'll get into that a little later when it actually comes up, but...
So this was reportedly part of the reason and had been scripted to, that he had been sort of scripted to be easily defeated by Umaga on an episode of Raw a few weeks earlier. They just decided, like, this guy's a stuntman, and unless we're doing some sort of plunder match, like, he's not useful to us, right? And you can sort of see why they would think that, to be fair.
Right. If he's uninterested and then he's only doing the crazy stuff that he's known for, then that's not, like, a crazy thing to believe, right?
Yeah, it's true. So I won't tell you who they put in since we're going to save that, but basically McMahon made his choice of who to put in to replace Sabu because he thought Lashley needed more villains to overcome. So Heyman was legitimately unhappy with this decision, saying
As was I.
And the fans too, right? This is an ECW pay-per-view, and you took out the only, other than Rob Van Dam, right? The only, like, quintessential ECW character here that people probably came to see. You've just worked him out of the match, like, without people knowing, before they paid and showed up. I'm just thinking
Joey Styles and Taz were probably dying inside this whole show.
There were times where I thought they were getting a little bored and just sort of amusing themselves, even in their commentary.
I mean, I don't really blame them.
I don't either. Heyman thought that Sabu's high-flying style would be the ideal showcase inside the Extreme Elimination Chamber.
Yeah,
and I also
this would probably be the stunt match that he would at least be interested in, and then get rid of him after this, but so at least have him in here.
Right, if you're saying all he's good at is these elaborate matches with weapons and stunts,
what would you call this?
Guess what? Right. So the fans, as this segment was airing and it became clear that Sabu wasn't going to be wrestling, were obviously chanting inappropriate things to let their displeasure be heard with this decision. Okay, so that takes us into the opening match, right? Which was, in my opinion, the only match that wasn't bad. I did not mind this match, and it was Eminem versus the Hardy Boys.
So I didn't mind it, and I didn't love it either.
How much Eminem have you seen before?
I've seen John Morrison do things.
That's it?
Yes.
I've told you, I was a fan of this group. So I have a little bit of a background here, because this was the only other match other than the main event that there was any storyline, so you won't have to worry about me doing this on any other matches because they were just pulled out of thin air, as we could tell.
Holy.
So unlike the Elimination Chamber rivalry, this opener did not include ECW superstars.
No, they literally said, we don't know if we're going to see these two teams ever again on ECW.
Right? So
why are they on the pay-per-view then?
The only match that wasn't bad, in my opinion,
is the one that didn't have any ECW people.
Right.
And literally they acknowledge them as not ECW people.
Yep.
It's not like they have like Matt Stryker and they're pretending he's an extremist.
Nope.
No, it's literally they're acknowledging that these two teams are not ECW, and we might never see them in ECW again.
And there's a word that I am.
Oh yes,
if I
extremist.
Never hear extremist.
I do have a thing to say about that later, but I will just
shoehorn that in.
I'll just say now that they called on Mike Knox and Kevin Thorne in their match later. We'll talk about that. They call them extremists, and I'm like, this is code for new characters we gave no thought into and have nothing to do with ECW, but we don't know how to make it good or like the original ECW, so who cares?
That's right. That's the name that they've decided is going to go with this brand, so they are going to drive
with these
that
new
home tonight.
People who are not ECW at all.
Right. So this opener only featured members of Raw and SmackDown brands, making the pay-per-view non-exclusive to ECW right out of the gate. So the build-up to this match between the teams began when Nitro and Jeff Hardy were feuding over the Intercontinental Championship on Raw,
which Jeff Hardy currently holds.
Right. The two competed in several different types of matches, including a ladder match. The Hardy Boys had
they mentioned like so many times.
The Hardy Boys had just teamed up for the first time since 2002 when they defeated Tony Mamaluke and Little Guido on an episode of ECW. At Survivor Series that was a week before this, the Hardy Boys, along with DX and CM Punk, defeated the team of Nitro, Rated RKO, which is Edge and Orton, obviously, Mike Knox and Gregory Helms
Mike Knox.
in a traditional Survivor Series team elimination match. The next day at December to Dismember press conference, the Hardy Boys announced an open challenge for this pay-per-view. Later that night on Raw, Nitro accepted the challenge, announcing the return of Mercury and the one-night-only reformation of Eminem. So I had forgotten that they were gone at this point and that this was like a one-night-only sort of reunion.
But then they were also at Armageddon, I believe, and that's where Joey Mercury gets his face busted.
Oh my goodness, does he ever. That is one thing I'll always remember, him getting his face destroyed.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe it wasn't one night only?
No, at this time they were saying it was, I think. On the following episode of ECW, Eminem attacked the Hardy Boys after they defeated Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay. Meanwhile, I didn't remember this. Little TNA shout out here. The Voodoo Kin Mafia, a tag team from TNA Wrestling, issued a statement via their website stating that they had accepted the Hardy Boys open challenge for December to Dismember, just sort of trying to get some sort of notoriety, right,
Isn't
from
that,
doing that.
New Age Outlaws?
Yeah, it was. They were part of it. I forget who else it was. Do you know why they chose the name Voodoo Kin Mafia? And my God, I don't know why I remember this. What are the initials? VKM. Vincent.
Oh my God.
Right? Kennedy McMahon.
Oh my God.
Right? So, however, Voodoo Kin Mafia did not turn up at the event, and WWE never acknowledged their challenge, right? That was just TNA trying to get some attention. So only 2 matches were officially announced for the pay-per-view before it aired. Wow. Does that ever show?
I mean, that is like the original ECW.
It is. So, yeah, we have Eminem versus Hardy Boys. What did you think? Did you have any thoughts on it? I'm not going to go move for move.
There was that one part where
sure.
they were all doing those dives, and you're like, it was such basic offense. Like, Matt Hardy did a slingshot, plancha, and then Nitro did a crossbody thing, I don't know. Or like a somersault thing, and then Jeff Hardy just did a jump.
No flips, no twists, no anything. Just jump onto the people.
You got
underneath.
Nitro, who can do a standing shooting star, and Jeff Hardy, who does a flippy doodad off things on a daily basis, and they're just jumping. Right.
So my basic notes, like, I did like this, but I thought considering the 4 guys involved, outside of a few double team spots, it was pretty slow, and it was a lot of It was a lot of isolating a baby face, right? Like, it was a lot of one of the Hardys.
Almost too much.
It was in peril, and then because we have Jeff Hardy hot tag, then a whole bunch of stuff happens, then we get a Matt Hardy hot tag, which I actually thought looked better here, but it was basically Eminem is isolating and tagging in and out and beating on one of the Hardy Boys until they get a hot tag.
And Taz overreacts to moves like a lot.
And he does. And didn't you think that I thought Eminem was way more the focus of this match than the Hardy Boys were?
Yeah, it was kind of like when SCU got so much offense and then the Acclaimed won.
It was Eminem, I felt like, were in control of this for 3/4 of the match and not doing very exciting things. I mean, it was fine. I liked this match. But it's definitely not what I expected. At one point, there was...
the best match even wasn't that strong.
I thought Matt Hardy had a nice hot tag. There were stereo superplexes right by the Hardys at one point that looked kind of cool. There was a snapshot, which is Eminem's finisher for a 2 count. And then the finish came with a double cutter by Matt, and then he stacked them up, and Jeff hit a swanton to both of them and then pinned one of them for the win. Melina had taken a bump off the apron, right? Accidentally gotten kicked by Nitro, I think it was.
Yep.
And she sold like crazy on the floor, like right past the end of the match even. She was still on the floor. So I thought this was a decent opener, but again, considering the teams involved, it was a lot of face in peril isolation tactics. And I was expecting like something really fast and almost hectic to open this. I still enjoyed it, but it was long and it wasn't what I expected. But it was the best thing on the show, I think.
Yes, fair enough.
What did you think? Same? Similar?
I thought this was good, but not great, and it was fine.
Like, it was good relative to everything else, but it wasn't. It was 22 minutes as well. It was a long match.
Yeah, and not that was necessarily a good thing.
No, and it's funny because one of the complaints of this show, it comes up at the end, but I'll say it now, is the fans were also annoyed because this show came in very short. It was supposed to be a 3-hour pay-per-view, and it came in at like 2 hours and 17 minutes. Because remember, even as we were watching it, we had gotten through a bunch of the amazing matches, and I'd opened some research and saw, I was like telling you, wow, every match is basically 7 minutes except for the opener and the main event.
I guess we could thank them for that.
I would way rather this be 2 hours, and imagine this was 3 hours. I would have been angry.
Punched myself so many times.
Right. So the next thing we get then is a quick RVD promo that I thought fit right in and was awful.
Yeah, he was just talking about the risk of the Extreme Elimination Chamber, and it's worth it for the ECW title.
And it was in that style where he's asking and answering his own questions. Am I worried about the weapons? Like that. And it was not good. I didn't think.
4 weapons in the match. Ooh.
The bottom line was that the ECW title is important, right? That's all I took out of it. It wasn't a good promo at all.
I don't know how it could be important on this stinking brand.
So then we get the next match, which is my first match, where my first note is, how is this a pay-per-view match? And it is Matt Striker versus Balls Mahoney. So at least we have an ECW person here. Balls Mahoney.
We can at least appreciate that somewhat.
And my first note is that the sweater vest and trunks that Striker is wearing is an incredible heel outfit. Like, wearing a sweater vest with nothing underneath it just seems bizarre to me. But anyways,
and trunks with his face on his butt.
But yeah, which they focused on a lot, and you noticed his trunks were a little bit
too
small.
tight. Like, you could see where his
a lot. You could see a lot.
You could tell a lot in his. You could see where his peak is.
Yes, there was not a lot left to the imagination.
Yeah.
And they kept zooming in on his face that was on his butt, like zooming in and
it's like,
focusing
are you checking
on
him out?
it. It was
People
interesting.
are like, what?
So Stryker speaks before the match starts.
Yes, he did.
And he makes this an Extreme Rules match and then changes, of course, because he's a heel. It's an extreme enforcement of the rules match. And then he gives the referee instructions as to, I want you to strictly enforce everything, basically. Nothing from the top rope, no closed fists, etc.,
This
etc.
match was so short, I don't even think the top rope thing was necessary.
Well, this is what one of my complaints about this match becomes. You're thinking, right, with him talking about this, the way this match should go is that Balls Mahoney keeps trying to use weapons or something, and the referee keeps stopping him, and that's how Stryker can recover or get an advantage, right? Like, that's what it seemed like they were laying out here. But again,
nothing.
They never planned this match. This was all just decided. They just pulled names out of a bag or something. I don't know.
Yes, how dare you think they were going to do something good with this?
So they spend this pre-match promo talking about that it's going to be an enforcement of rules match, which was completely unnecessary. The match happens.
Yes. Balls
Stryker,
Mahoney wins with the sit-out spine buster.
Yeah, Stryker works Ball's arm for a long time, but he's not very creative about it. It's just basically an arm bar and then stomp on it and then fall on it.
Also, just like from my perspective, it's so weird to see him as a wrestler.
It is. I called him the anti-Benoit because if Benoit was going to work your arm, he was going to pull out like 38 different moves and 7 of them I wouldn't have seen before. You know what I mean? Where it's Stryker, it's like arm bar, stomp, arm bar, fall backwards on the arm, arm bar. So it was not good.
This is bad.
As the match progressed, I asked, why did Stryker need to manipulate the rules when he's just going to dominate the match anyways? He basically got like 80% of this match,
yeah,
maybe
I hated
more.
When Balls Mahoney was punching him and they're like, balls, balls, balls.
The crowd kind of tried to get into it. They were dead here and annoyed, you could tell as well at certain points. So Mahoney wins a really bad match with a sit-out spinebuster. Stryker's pre-match promo had nothing to do with anything, right? This should have been the story of Balls Mahoney, who comes from ECW. He can't stop bringing in foreign objects, and the ref has to remind him and stop him, and that's how Stryker gets his advantage. But no, nothing. It was a regular, crappy, brutal match, and it was over, thankfully, within about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So a brutal match, no reason for it, and this is where it starts to make sense, right? These matches were not planned for at all, and you can tell these guys had no clue what they were doing.
We're not called for either.
No. Sorry, this is actually when Sabu is actually attacked.
Yeah.
And taken out backstage. So
yeah,
sorry.
but we kind of went over this.
Yep.
And
So that
it
happened
does
here.
not matter.
So then we get another, just even on paper, these matches are just star-studded. The star power on this show is unbelievable.
Yes, sir.
If you thought Matt Stryker and Balls Mahoney was enough star power to get you through, well, now you're going to get, who do we get here, buddy?
Elijah Burke and Sylvester Turkai.
Versus more star power.
Well, you get FBI, you get Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke. I mean, they are ECW, but could you have gotten something better?
So second match in a row. How is this a pay-per-view match?
Like, again, you can be thankful they at least really kind of used the FBI, who are sort of ECW.
They are.
Like they were.
That is true.
But still, Sylvester Turkai, really. He looks like a combination between Tucker Knight and Cassius Ohno.
He's a gigantic amateur wrestler that Vince would have just loved, right? But had zero personality.
Could you have given him a better
zero
name?
Charisma.
Like Turkai? Why don't you just call him Sylvester Turkey? Like.
So Burke cuts another pointless promo before the match, and even Taz points out something he said that didn't make sense. I can't remember specifically
I just wanted to
what it
say
was.
that this is unrelated, but like he did not sound the way I thought he would sound.
Who, Taz or Elijah Burke?
Elijah Burke.
He cuts a pretty good promo a lot of the time. He's got a lot of charisma. Obviously, he went into commentary, right? So he can talk, but this was not a good example. And he and Turkai being thrown together seemed really weird too. It was
they
an
really
odd
don't
pairing.
Seem similar to me in
Not
any
at
way.
all.
Maybe I'm missing something here.
Not
but
at all. Well, I think their hope was Burke's a mouthpiece for this monster, but it didn't work out, obviously.
No.
So Turkai is a huge guy, but he does nothing other than really basic offense. At one point, Tony Mamaluke gets a hot tag, and we get the Elijah experience for the win.
Which is Skull Crushing Finale.
Which is also called the Stroke at this time. This is Jeff Jarrett's finisher,
right.
which is part of it.
And
then Turkai, right?
After the match.
Yeah, he picks up which one of them?
I think Guido.
And hits him with a muscle buster, and the crowd, what do they decide
they
to do?
start chanting TNA.
So I was explaining to Jack that they just witnessed two TNA finishers, right? The stroke, which is Jeff Jarrett's finisher, and then the muscle buster, which is Samoa Joe's finisher, which at first Taz acts like he doesn't know what it is. And then Joey Styles tells him a muscle. And he's like, I'm just kidding. I knew what it was, right? Because obviously this is a very well-known move by a famous wrestler. Thoughts on this barn burner of a match, sir?
This felt like such an AEW dark match, and it's on a pay-per-view.
Right.
But then I immediately take it back because, like I said earlier, you could probably find a better match on Dark. And I would also say
this for sure.
I would say the same about Mahoney versus Stryker. Like, these are really bad. You put some ECW originals who are probably not the best choices up against some new dorks. And
I don't think Tony, Mamaluke, and Guido, they have no build to anything. They're not they're not a strong tag team in their own right. So this is not
right. It's
a bizarre matchup on a pay-per-view. Another one. I thought this was a Sunday Night Heat match at best. It was basically a tag squash match, right? With very boring offense by the people performing the squash.
The only thing I can remember the FBI doing is they drop kicked Turkai in the legs and then drop kicked him in the face. And I also must say that when they drop kicked him in the legs, he took a second too late to fall down.
He did. He couldn't even take basic offense. He was very, very green, I'm guessing, at this point. Never amounted to anything. Turkai, sorry, I'm talking about. Yes. So I was already starting to get insulted by, what is this, the second match of the show? And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Third match? Second match? I don't know. It felt like 20 matches. Third match. Yeah. So then, at least then, it's going to take an upturn, right? And we're going to start getting some star power on this show.
No.
So we get Daivari.
Yes.
Versus Tommy Dreamer.
Impact star right there, Daivari.
How is this a pay-per-view match? Right. Again, this is the theme.
Wait, you're forgetting that Daivari was accompanied by the Great Khali.
That is true.
Now that's pay-per-view worthy.
So that's star power. And if anything says ECW, it's the Great Khali.
Right? Yes. Those chops over the head, man.
Devastating.
I'm surprised no one gets busted open when he's
hitting people. It's like getting hit with a steel chair.
It is like getting hit, yes. Or when Sandman canes the crap out of people, that is probably how Great Khali's opponents feel.
Yep. This, I don't understand obviously I do understand now. This came out of thin air, as all the matches did, so
man, that's why Khali was here, because doesn't he have his own manager, Rinku Singh or whatever?
At this point, I don't
Or is that
remember.
the Impact guy? I don't even know.
So Daivari is in control of this at point with really boring holds like chin locks and headlocks, and I don't understand what's going on. The crowd is understandably dead, and they start to
I may know that somewhere.
They start to amuse themselves by chanting things at certain points in time, and you can't really blame them. Sometimes I get annoyed when crowds do that, but these guys are being insulted, and they paid money to come to this, so I don't blame them at all. So
I feel bad for anyone who ordered this on pay-per-view too.
Honestly. Well, we'll talk about the pay-per-view buys. I have a note on that as well.
Yes.
So this was a roll-up victory for Daivari in another match that's not worthy of TV, let alone a pay-per-view. I don't really have much to say. It was
again Sunday Night Heat at best.
And Khali, which got auto-corrected to Khaki, comes back in to murder Dreamer on the stage. So that looked kind of cool, right?
Yeah, it looked alright, and then they replayed it 5,000 times.
Because it looked so cool, they replayed it approximately.
Let's take a look at this. Oh yeah, and then Taz was like, "Listen to the sound of this," and then they played a replay that had no sound.
Right.
I'm like, wow.
It's amazing production value the whole way through this thing.
Maybe it's because it was a slow motion, but I don't even think it was. I think it just had no sound.
So now that we've gotten all these lesser matches out of the way,
let's get a real one.
This is where the star power is going to kick in, right? It has to. I mean, it's been a letdown to this point, but now here comes the star power, because we get a tag team match, and we're going to get Mike Knox with Kelly Kelly versus Kevin Thorne and Ariel.
Yes.
So this is like
and when I saw amazing. Ariel, I was like, holy breast implant.
Yeah, she was not wearing very much clothes, as this was 14
years
ago.
Yeah, the one time she was doing this move to Kelly Kelly in the corner, like they kind of choke him with their foot.
Yep.
I'm like, this is a blatant excuse for a butt shot.
It was. So I laughed because Joey Styles sums up each of their gimmicks as they come down. So for Mike Knox and Kelly Kelly, he says, a young exhibitionist and her insanely jealous boyfriend.
Nice.
So there's their entire character and storyline summed up.
Yes.
Right?
That's what we had to watch on ECW TV. Kelly Kelly, half stripping.
Constantly, and being stopped by Mike Knox.
And I'm surprised she didn't have... Because she does also get breast implants later in her career. I'm surprised she just didn't have them already.
Right from the get. At this point, I think she's insanely young too. I think she was very young when she started.
Maybe that's why.
So the summary of the gimmick for Thorne and Ariel, and this is another word I got tired of hearing really quickly. 2 followers of vampirism. Vampirism was quite...
Is that even just say vampires, man.
Right? And vampirism, it's, Google Docs
Right.
is saying it's a word, so we're good to go.
Yeah, I guess.
I did kind of like Ariel's hanging like a bat upside down during their entrance from the ropes.
Yes,
I
and
thought
that was probably the only thing that was
that might be
somewhat
my
enjoyable.
only... And this is where I noted that even Joey Styles and Taz seemed bored during this match. It's basically... And honestly, I thought Mike Knox and Kevin Thorne weren't bad in my memory. I'm going to have to rethink that, right? This was two hosses. They're big dudes doing basic moves while Ariel screams on the apron, which I put... Didn't Melina already do this gimmick earlier and do it better?
Yeah, and even Melina I found annoying, but I found Ariel more annoying.
So this, honestly, you wouldn't know because you weren't alive at this point, but
I was not.
This felt like I was talking about this reference. It felt like watching 80s TV wrestling. You get two big, strong guys who aren't in great shape, right? They're not in bad shape, but they're not super jacked.
A half-baked version of the Ultimate Challenge.
And they're just taking turns doing basic moves, basically, is all they're doing, right? It was not good. Then, just to go from bad to worse, the women tag in, right? And neither of these women know how to wrestle.
We all know how terrible Kelly is, and then
she can't even run the ropes, and they didn't even have her try in this match, right?
I honestly wanted to see it.
So there was nothing going on here, and basically the finish comes when Kelly goes for a tag. Knox does the heel thing where he refuses and drops down off the apron and sort of walks out.
That really made me laugh like a lot because I just felt that she deserved it.
This was trying to make her a face, right? She's being sort of abandoned by the big heel monster.
Because apparently she expressed feelings for CM Punk.
Right.
Ugh.
That's what it was. Exactly. Before the match, she wished him luck. We did forget that very important detail.
I also just wanted to say the thing I thought immediately was poor CM Punk.
Right. So Ariel licks her hand, grabs Kelly's throat.
And then just like an STO takedown.
I guess I said pushes her over for the pin. Was my description of it because it did not look... There's not a lot of force behind it.
And then she literally sits on Kelly's face. Like I swear, one of her butt cheeks was on Kelly's face.
For the pin, yep.
Yes.
And then the only real fun the fans get in this whole show probably is Sandman shows up and does his traditional walk through the crowd. And he kendo sticks Kevin Thorne repeatedly.
Yes, he canes the crap out of Thorne.
He does, yes.
Much like he did to Big Dick Johnson.
I thought this, and this is saying something, I thought this was the worst thing so far on a show that's had nothing but bad things, basically.
I mostly blame Kelly.
Like, the opener was defendable, and everything else since then has been bad, and this is the worst thing so far.
I would be probably even offended if this was on, like, Sunday Night Heat or Velocity.
Right.
Like... I'd be offended
Honestly,
if I got this match on an indie show.
A few of these matches
anywhere.
would not be... I would skip right over them on Heat,
Yes, I would... these matches I would never want on any wrestling show ever. And they are on a pay-per-view. People paid money for this.
Thank you on Christmas for making me watch this. This is great.
You're welcome.
So then we move into our main event, and honestly...
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention Sabu's replacement.
Yeah, who is it? You go ahead, tell him.
Oh yeah. So it's RVD versus CM Punk versus Bobby Lashley versus Test. Yes, Test is in this match.
He is.
Versus Big Show versus Hardcore Holly.
Yep, Hardcore Holly, the most WWE guy ever, takes out the most...
I mean, he's got Hardcore in his name, so I mean, he must be very ECW-like.
And I did actually like him. I was telling... Jack and I were talking about stuff before this, and I was saying I was listening to something, I think it was Matt Morgan again, talking about how Holly was one of those guys who wanted to work stiff, but only one direction. He wanted to beat the heck out of you, but wasn't willing to have it returned to him. And he also, I think, said that JBL was similar to that, but to contrast, he said a guy like Bubba Ray Dudley, right? He wanted to beat the crap out of you, but he was also expecting you to lay it in against him. So Matt Morgan seemed to respect that a lot more than Lashley. Just sort of wanted to take liberties with people more so than work stiff, I guess would be the correct way to say it.
And I think that's just kind of stupid, but whatever.
So I had kind of high hopes for this match because honestly, how bad can an Elimination Chamber match be? And you're getting weapons thrown in.
I heard not great things, obviously.
I hadn't heard anything. I'm just thinking, right? It's an elimination multi-man match with weapons. It should be interesting.
Well, speaking of the weapons, they keep talking about this match throughout the night like it's a brand new stipulation. It is an Elimination Chamber with 4 weapons.
Yes.
And this would be more extreme if they had barbed wire on the walls or weapons hung around the chamber or on the ringside floors, like I was saying. And there's only one ECW original in this match in Rob Van Dam, and there's hardly any weapons. This is a lousy excuse for an ECW main event. and they're being extremely generous when they call this extreme.
Again, there was very little thought put into this. Clearly,
the stipulation isn't new. Like they're making it they're making it seem new, but it could be good, but given the competitors, I doubt it.
And even just the way the match played out, I thought was pretty
lazy.
Right,
it's too. Like you got 4 weapons for 6 people, and like even if you had 6 weapons for 6 people, I'd say that's not very extreme.
Well, and we'll get into it. I have a little bit of background information on the main event before we start complaining about it too much. So the main event at December to Dismember featured an Extreme Elimination Chamber match for the ECW World Championship. So on the October 24th episode of ECW, Rob Van Dam defeated the ECW World Champion Big Show for the 2nd consecutive time. As per the stipulation, if Van Dam were to defeat Big Show again in a ladder match, he could then choose a time and place to face the Big Show for the ECW World Championship.
So he has to beat him 3 times just to get a title shot?
Yep, I guess so. Van Dam chose to have his title shot at the December to Dismember pay-per-view, and authority figure Paul Heyman authorized Van Dam's decision and added him to the Extreme Elimination Chamber contest for the ECW Championship.
Let me get this straight.
With Big Show and 4 others. Yes.
He is beating the champion 3 times to get a title shot in which there is 4 other people who could possibly win the title.
And those 4 other
what an opportunity.
Those 4 other participants were decided through standard singles matches, and that's how we got here.
And so they only had to beat other people once, where he had to beat the champion 3 times.
Right.
How fair.
Right. Makes tons of sense.
So
Heyman comes out first and he talks, and I didn't really listen too much. I was annoyed at this point already and was doing some research. But basically, Sabu's opportunity is gone, etc. I don't know if you took any more detailed notes on that.
No, I did not.
I made a note, and you pointed it out too. Test looks ridiculously jacked and oily.
Like, not even in a good way, though.
No, jacked to the point where it doesn't even look like he can move, possibly, But anyways, so a few match highlights, ? That I have. All I noticed was that pathetic jump that Holly did off the ropes into RVD's foot, which looked really
did
bad.
A cool rolling thunder to the
He
outside,
did right after
and
that.
That's my only match note.
Van Dam ends up being bloody. He hits a frog splash after some chair shots to Punk for the elimination. So one of my annoyances with this match is the people who can really, really work and that I was interested in seeing are taken out right away.
Right, that's one thing I've heard, is that the 2 favorites to win the match were out fairly quickly.
Because this was not a long match by Elimination Chamber matches. This was 24 minutes, barely longer than the opener. And Punk is out very quickly, right? One of the only guys I wanted to see, and for sure, it's almost like they're intentionally trolling the fans at this point, because they know that's who they want to see. They want to see Punk and RVD, right? So they're like, they're gone first. So that kind of stuff annoys me.
Right.
Remember this? Holly kicks out of Test's boot, but doesn't. And
right, that's why he gets eliminated.
So the commentary team say that he kicked out, but then the ref rolls him out and tells him he's gone, right? And then he was never back after that, was he?
No.
Right. So there was a miscommunication there. The commentary team messed it up, or somebody messed it up anyways.
Right.
So he did get eliminated there by Test.
And then Test also eliminates RVD with the elbow drop off the chamber pod onto a chair.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't look great, but
it happened.
And Test used to do elbow drops, so this was sort of part of his character. Then RVD's gone as well, basically, and the crowd is now getting really angry. You can understand why, because again, the people they came to see are out right away, and you're going to be left with Test and Big Show and Lashley as your final 3.
That is so ECW.
And I don't mind Lashley. I think he's a good wrestler, but he's not an amazing
and
spot monkey.
And this was not when he was good either.
Yeah, and he's not basically an Extreme Rules guy or anything, so he's good in straight up matches. Anyways, right. Heyman's goons at some point stop Lashley from getting out of his pod, right?
They take out a ref who's gonna release Lashley,
and then they stop him from opening the door while Test stands there and taunts him. So Lashley gets angry, and I don't think this went as well as it was supposed to either. He's in the pod with a table in there because there's a weapon in each pod. So he uses that to smash through the roof of the...
Right, and I'm questioning how that would work. You must have chains, some really weak chains.
Yeah.
So the table's not sharp.
No, and he only hit it a couple times. And I mean, he's a big, strong guy, of course. But whoever built this chamber, the craftsmanship was not up to snuff, right?
They need to be fired. Holy.
So Lashley eliminates Test and then has over a minute where he's just waiting for Big Show. So really well booked show. He's just waiting for the 2 final guys to square off. So basically the end, a bloody Big Show gets speared and Lashley wins a really weak chamber match. They couldn't even pull this through.
Test looked dominant in eliminating Holly and RVD, but it's just so he wouldn't look completely stupid as he became Lashley's punching bag.
Right. So it was quick. The talented wrestlers that people wanted to see were eliminated early.
Yeah, and then the final stretch was really slow and plodding, and
it was.
The whole match was the opposite of extreme, other than a bit of bleeding.
Right. There's blood and there were weapons there, but it definitely was not like. Compare this to even just the women's War Games match we just saw. Like nowhere near a fraction of that.
Yeah.
So they took out one of the guys everyone wanted to see before the match even started.
Yes.
Then the two other guys, they took them out first.
Yeah, one of them was first.
And then your final three of Test, Lashley, and Big Show does not spell excitement on an ECW pay-per-view. Was Test actually ECW at this point?
I think so, like for a bit maybe.
Yeah. So
I'm not even sure.
I don't know. Final thoughts on the show? I need to catch my breath. What did you think?
This show was as bad as I have heard, and I guess, like I said, I guess this is my payback to like making me watch WSX. But even then, is that like such a good thing? Like, I really don't know what I was thinking here, other than punishment.
Yeah, well, I only made you watch 2 20-minute shows, man, and they were kind of funny. They were bad funny.
Yeah,
this was bad.
So
get ready. I'm going to try and find something
All
to
right.
make
this
you
is
watch.
Our
That's really
bad wrestling war, I guess.
So this was a horrible show, and after doing
so bad.
a little research, it makes sense. Like only 2 matches were planned at all. Everything in between
I know.
was just not planned and pulled out of the air. And most of these matches weren't good enough for TV, let alone a pay-per-view. I liked the opener. I'm not even saying it was a great match, but it was watchable, right? Like if that were on a pay-per-view, I'm okay with it. That was it. The main event wasn't good.
Like
the matches in between were unwatchable, and I'd basically completely forgotten about this and was happy about it. So now I'm not happy with you. I'm going to burn some of your Christmas presents after this. Aw.
Well, they are in cardboard boxes.
So I have some aftermath. You want to know the aftermath of this fun show?
Yes, because it's probably more interesting than the show itself.
So 90,000 pay-per-view buys. So that is the 4th lowest ever. However, in reality, it's probably the lowest ever because the other 3 that are ahead of it are shortly after the network launched and was giving out like the free, right? So
so that doesn't really count.
So that would have lowered the numbers there because so many people were getting those pay-per-views for free. So that's why their numbers were low. So if all things were equal, this would be the lowest.
Right. If we're talking pay-per-view, right?
So the show ended 45 minutes early, and some fans were not happy about it. So less than 24 hours after the pay-per-view, and this is kind of what you were talking about before, WWE announced on their official website that Vince McMahon had sent Heyman home, citing, quote, slumping television ratings and a disgruntled talent roster.
I thought he wanted to leave. I'm pretty sure he wanted to leave.
Well, he might have, but he was escorted from the Coliseum and sent home. He was also immediately pulled from ECW creative team after the altercation. McMahon was attempting to put blame on Heyman for poorly received pay-per-view, and after a meeting with Vince and Stephanie McMahon, Heyman legitimately left World Wrestling Entertainment but remained under contract. So even though he had a contract, it was just like, I'm going home and I'm not working.
Yeah, and if I was the fans, I'd honestly be thankful that it ended early.
Yeah. Heyman was against the decision of Lashley being booked to win the ECW championship and instead wanted Punk, a decision McMahon disliked. The situation was cited by Punk in his controversial worked shoot promo in 2011, I think the pipe bomb, in which he referred to the idea as one in which, quote, Heyman saw something in Punk that nobody else wanted to admit. So that's what he was talking about, how Heyman was really the only guy that kind of had his back as he was trying to come up. Upset at how the event turned out, Tommy Dreamer and Stevie Richards both asked after the event to be released.
Yeah, I heard that, and obviously it wasn't granted.
Those are 2 legit ECW guys, right, who sort of were very, very involved in that company and loved it, and so they saw the way this was going. So both of their requests were refused by McMahon, of course, and President of Talent Relations, John Laurinaitis. So they wanted to leave, but were not granted their release. I have one other thing for fun.
Okay.
All right, so this is Dave Meltzer's December to Dismember star ratings. You ready? Okay, so, oh wow, he refused to rate one even. Interesting. So Hardy Boyz versus Eminem. If the 5-star rating, would you care to guess? So it was 22 minutes and 33 seconds.
1.5.
He gave it 3 1/4. I think that's fair. Like a decent match, right? Like that's around 70%.
I was just going 70%. Because he doesn't give like high ratings for main roster.
So I will, at the risk of, I'm sure you could guess, that is the highest rated match he gave. So Balls Mahoney versus Matt Striker.
1 star.
1/2 star. Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay versus the FBI.
3/4 of a star.
1 1/4 star.
What?
Amazing.
That is. No.
So those first 3 matches add up to 5 stars between 3 matches.
Nice.
Davari versus Tommy Dreamer, he gave
Half
a
star.
dud. He wouldn't even rate it.
Oh.
So he says that was the worst thing on the show. I thought,
don't.
oh no, that's not true. I was about to say it couldn't get worse than that, but he gave the. I didn't notice this when I copied it. Kevin Thorne and Ariel versus Mike Knox and Kelly Kelly. If I said a dud wasn't the worst rating he gave.
-3.
He gave it -1 star.
Oh, nice.
Amazing. And the Elimination Chamber match, what do you think? It was the second best
2.5.
match. Exactly. 2.5 stars.
Oh, nice.
So I don't really disagree with him, right? The opener I thought was an acceptable match. The main event was not a good match. And everything else was like insulting. And that's what he's basically saying, right? The middle matches, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them add up. So 1.7. So the 4 matches add up to 0.75 stars total, added up between the 4 of them. Not average, total. 0.75 stars. So this was one of the all-time bad WWE shows. The only good thing I can say about it is that it was short. It was shorter than it was supposed to be. All of the middle absolute garbage matches flew by because none of them were 8 minutes even. So that is its only saving grace. This was a top to bottom bad pay-per-view, and it was kind of interesting to go back and read
it
the
was
information.
everything I've heard it to be.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It was not good. I did not enjoy it.
Oh my god, so bad.
So I guess that will bring us to the end of this bonus podcast.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
So never go and watch this. Just trust us. It's not worth it.
If you have the network, don't ever search up the words ECW December to Dismember.
There's nothing worth it on there.
No. Not even like the decent tag match. Like you could find a better tag match anywhere else ever.
Well, I guess that's going to wrap this up, and I hope that, we just looking to fill some time. Most people have some extra time over the holidays. We thought we would watch some terrible wrestling and sit and talk about it.
Yeah, I thought it'd be kind of funny to watch a bad wrestling, and it wasn't.
No, I mean, it was fun to talk about and do this.
I almost would rather watch the rest of WSX, honestly.
We could watch some more of that at some point. It was fun. Or I would like to get into some Lucha Underground. But anyways.
That'd be kind of fun.
So our regular weekly podcast will be happening as scheduled on Saturdays. We'll talk about AEW Dynamite and NXT. And I won't have Impact Wrestling to do this week because they're just a best-of show.
Yeah.
So ROH I'll talk about a little bit.
And SmackDown was taped. Tonight's SmackDown is taped, so I already know what happened.
Maybe a TLC Turbo review.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, TLC.
So we thank you for spending the better part of an hour with us on Christmas Day, if that's when you're listening to us. Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you're safe and healthy and that you enjoy Christmas in 2020 or whatever you celebrate. If it's not Christmas, anything is good. And I hope it goes as well as possible in this crazy year. And we will see you back here on Saturday for our regular show. Until then, take care, everybody.
Happy holidays.